In the early 16th century, the Inca Empire, known as Tawantinsuyu, or the Realm of the Four Parts, stood as the largest and most sophisticated civilization in the pre-Columbian Americas. Stretching nearly 2,500 miles along the spine of the Andes Mountains, its domain encompassed modern-day Peru, Ecuador, Bolivia, and parts of Chile, Argentina, and Colombia. This empire was a marvel of engineering and social organization, with over 10 million subjects, monumental architecture, and a complex system of roads and agriculture that defied the harsh mountain terrain. At its helm was the Sapa Inca, a divine ruler, and in the 1520s, this figure was the formidable Huayna Capac Tota. Under his rule, the empire had reached its zenith, a seemingly invincible power. Yet it was on the precipice of a cataclysmic collapse, brought about by forces both internal and external. The first harbinger of doom was not a soldier, but an invisible killer. Around 1527, smallpox, a disease carried across the Atlantic by European explorers, swept into the empire with terrifying speed and lethality. Having no prior exposure, the indigenous population possessed no immunity, and the plague decimated entire communities, killing an estimated 50% to 90% of the population. Among the victims was the emperor himself, Huayna Capac, and his chosen heir, Ninan Kuyachi, creating a sudden and catastrophic power vacuum. The emperor's death ignited a bitter and destructive civil war between two of his sons, the legitimate heir, Ascar, in the southern capital of Cusco, and the ambitious, brilliant general, Tahualpa, in the northern city of Quito Topara. For 5 years, from 1528 to 1532, the war of the two brothers tore the empire apart. Brother fought brother, and the carefully woven fabric of Inca society unraveled as armies clashed, resources were depleted, and the population was further fractured. Just as this internal conflict reached its bloody climax, a new, far more dangerous threat appeared on the horizon. In 1532, the Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro, a hardened and ruthless opportunist, landed on the coast of Peru with a tiny force of just 168 men. Driven by tales of a kingdom of gold, Pizarro was on his third expedition to the continent, and this time he was determined to succeed at any cost. As the Spanish marched inland, they discovered a land divided by war, a fact Pizarro quickly realized he could exploit to his immense advantage. Atahualpa, having just captured his brother Huascar and won the Civil War, was celebrating his victory in the highland city of Cajamarca-Totot. Underestimating the strange, bearded foreigners, he agreed to meet Pizarro in the city's main square, a decision that would seal his fate. On November 16, 1532, Pizarro laid a masterful and treacherous trap. Atahualpa entered the square, carried on a magnificent litter, accompanied by thousands of his nobles and attendants, who were largely unarmed as a sign of their leader's absolute confidence. The Spanish priest, Vicente de Valverde, approached the Sapa Inca and demanded he accept Christianity and the authority of the Spanish king. When Atahualpa, confused and insulted, threw the offered Bible to the ground, Pizarro gave the signal to attack. The tranquil scene erupted into a horrifying massacre. Terrifying sound of cannons and arquebuses, the sight of armored men on horseback, and the flash of steel swords created sheer panic among the Incas. In just a few hours, thousands of Incas were slaughtered, and Pizarro himself seized Atahualpa, dragging him from his litter. The empire, whose divine leader was now a captive of a handful of foreigners, was paralyzed with shock and disbelief. Realizing his captor's lust for precious metals, Atahualpa made an astonishing offer for his freedom. He promised to fill a large room, approximately 22 feet long by 17 feet wide, once with gold and twice with silver within 2 months. Pizarro agreed, and for weeks, a river of gold and silver flowed into Cajamarca from every corner of the empire. Intricate jewelry, statues and plates were stripped from temples and palaces. The ransom was one of the largest in history, yet it was not enough to save Atahualpa. The Spanish, fearing an Inca rescue attempt and knowing he was more valuable dead than alive, decided to eliminate him. After a sham trial where he was charged with treason and the murder of his brother Huascar, Atahualpa was sentenced to be burned at the stake. He was ultimately executed by garrote in July 1533, after agreeing to a last-minute conversion to Christianity to avoid the horror of being burned, which the Incas believed would destroy one's soul. With the Sapa Inca dead, Pizarro marched his forces, now bolstered by indigenous groups who had chafed under Inca rule, towards the imperial capital of Cusco. In November 1533, the Spanish entered the heart of the empire, looting its immense treasures and marveling at its architectural splendor, before claiming it for Spain. To maintain a semblance of order, Pizarro installed Atahualpa's 17-year-old brother, Manco Inca, as a puppet emperor. However, the Spanish greed was insatiable, and their constant demands for more gold and their abuse of the Inca people quickly turned Manco Inca against them. In 1536, after being repeatedly humiliated, Manco Inca executed a clever escape from Cusco. He rallied a massive army, estimated at over 100,000 warriors, and laid siege to Cusco, trapping the small Spanish garrison within the city walls. For nearly 10 months, the Great Rebellion raged, and the Spanish came perilously close to being wiped out. However, the Spanish cavalry, steel weapons, and the arrival of reinforcements, combined with the Incas' need to disperse for planting season, ultimately broke the siege. Defeated but not broken, Manco Inca retreated with his followers into the dense, remote jungles of Vilcabamba, northeast of Cusco. Here he established a neo-Inca state, a final bastion of resistance against the invaders. For the next 36 years, from this mountain sanctuary, Manco and his successors waged a guerrilla war, launching raids against the Spanish. During this time, the conquerors fought amongst themselves, with Francisco Pizarro being assassinated in Lima in 1541 by followers of his executed rival, Diego de Almagro. Finally, in 1572, the Spanish viceroy decided to crush the last Inca stronghold for good. They captured the final Sapa Inca, Tupac Amaru, and brought him back to Cusco. In a public ceremony designed to extinguish the last spark of rebellion, Tupac Amaru was beheaded in the main square, the very same place where Atahualpa had been killed decades earlier. The fall of the Inca Empire was not a simple conquest, but a complex tragedy, born from a perfect storm of disease, internal division, and foreign invasion. The once mighty realm of the four parts was shattered, its people subjugated, and its immense wealth plundered, paving the way for centuries of Spanish colonial rule, and forever altering the destiny of the Andean world.